Welcome, YouTube friends and family, to today's fun edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So by popular request, please excuse the dishwasher in the background. I am going to do another story time with me. I love learning new things. I love history. So I thought it might be relevant right now to talk about the history of our strange diet culture. I hope you'll stay tuned. One of the things I've been meaning to mention, and y'all probably know this, is I have no control over what ads play. It's whichever manufacturer, if you will, or company feels that my content may be relative to their product and thus my viewers. So if y'all see like crazy diet ads, that's not coming from me, just saying. So think about today. You almost cannot turn on the television, look at print ads, like magazines, that kind of thing. Or even if you're a social media person, all of the ads for diet products. And in today's 2023, thin equals happy. And that has been off and on the real attitude of people. And I'm here to tell you, thin doesn't make you happy. I've been really thin, wasn't so happy. 98% of all diets, like where you're going to go on a specific eating plan and that's what you're going to do, are complete failures. And I don't even need to tell you that some of the products that are out there can have really adverse effects as far as on your heart and your blood pressure. So y'all probably know that. But I will tell you that the ideal body has completely changed through the decades. Now, y'all know I kind of like the 1950s, mid-century type thing, but there has been a variety of sizes in vogue through the years. So diets have been around for centuries and centuries. And if you think about artwork from ancient Greece, the women were depicted as very curvy. And that has changed, as you all know, through the decades. But it stayed well into the 1800s that a curvy woman equals a successful rich woman. And so when you had excess weight, you were regarded highly. I'd have been famous, just saying. They were also thought to be more fertile if they were a little heavier. But then came the 1890s and the Gibson girl came into vogue. And they were curvy, but they had a very small waist. They were beautiful, tall, the ideal woman. They were always depicted doing something active like walking or swimming or, riding a bicycle. But the problem is, guys, just like Betty Crocker, she wasn't even real. It was a rendition drawn by Charles Gibson of his ideal woman. So by 1914, that Gibson girl ideal starts to fade because of the start of World War I. There was a void, of course, in the workforce because a lot of men went off to fight for our country. So women went to work and did not have as much time to eat and were burning more calories for sure. So once the war ended, three things happened. And I want to share those with you. So as you all know, the war officially ended in November of 1918, and something else happened at that same time. Dr. Luke Hunt published the very first diet book, and it was called Diet and Health with Key to the Calories. Praise to the calories, right? And his philosophy was like this: your body is similar to a car engine. If you give it too little nutrition, food, calories, it will become sluggish and die. Your engine, not you. If you have too much, it's going to slow down your whole body. So his diet, y'all, I'm so glad I wasn't around in 1918, was one perfect meal a day, and it was comprised of cottage cheese and an unbuttered French roll. How bland is that? I wonder if you could use like salt and pepper. But he also said no more than 1,200 calories a day for anyone. And we know that depends on your size, your body needs at the time, if you're pregnant, if you're nursing, if you're extremely active, if you're extremely sedentary, etc., etc. But he actually sold millions of copies. It was a very famous diet book. The second thing that happened after the war, doggone it, was the bathroom scale was invented. And being overweight, and guys, first let me say this, I should have said this at the beginning. This is not to fat shame or body shame anyone. Y'all, I'm a fluffy person and I fully own it. So I just think it's very interesting to see how it has changed through the decades. And guys, I even have some books to share with you that are really, really cool. But anyway, fat was then called lack of willpower if you were overweight. Well, we now know you can be genetically predisposed to being overweight. The American diet is not good with all the convenience foods and the high calorie fast foods. And it can also have to do with your metabolism, your thyroid. There's so many reasons, right? It's not just lack of willpower. But you were no longer considered rich if you were fat. You were considered lazy. I would have been lazy. The third thing that happened was the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1919, when women were given the right to vote. So there was a total new image and a new style of flapper. So let's talk a little bit about the flapper. If you've been a long-time subscriber, you probably saw my Christmas Through the Decades series, and I actually wore a flapper dress for one of those, but I do not have a flapper body. So the dresses were at or above the knee, which was a big change in modesty, and the body shape changed dramatically. It was no longer desirable to be curvy. They were very thin and almost had an androgynous type look. So think about Coco Chanel, little black dress. And now we welcome in the craze of fad diets, which were very detrimental to, I think, Americans in general. So ads began to appear promoting diet aids to look like a flapper. Now, y'all, I'm going to share some things. I don't think it'll gross anybody out, but you'll be like, really? They did that? So they were doing diet pills, diet chewing gum, and laxatives. And we all know that the only thing a laxative is going to do is temporarily make the scale reflect a lower number, and that it's not healthy to do that. There was a diet called the medical millennial diet, and you were to chew slowly, eat one dish per meal. So like for breakfast, you would have an egg. For lunch, you would have a salad. For dinner, you could have meat, but you couldn't mix it together. And a big part of this was enduring regular enemas. So I wonder how many people got electrolyte imbalances or permanent damage to their intestine from the millennial diet craze. The next one that came, this is hard to believe, is the cigarette diet. So Lucky Strikes actually had an ad that said, I want to quote it, "Reach for a Lucky instead of a sweet." Basically, you were to smoke, not eat. I am sure that was super, super helpful. The next phase was really the golden age of Hollywood. And there was a diet called the 18-day diet. Like, this one is really weird. You could only have 585 calories a day. And it's generally thought nowadays that you shouldn't go below 1,200 calories a day for maximum nutrition. But you could have oranges, grapefruit, toast, eggs, and you were to chain smoke. So what is this with this? Did the tobacco industry sponsor this? They might have. I really wonder. So I want to tell you about someone that you probably have heard of. It's a old-timey famous Golden Age of Hollywood movie star. Her real name was Retha Dale Watson. She was born in 1898, and I will share with you, my grandma was born in 1898. God rest her soul. She really wanted to be an actress, so she started out as an extra, but she felt like Retha was not a good name. So when she was 24, she changed her name to Barbara Lamar. And she quickly got a job as a screenwriter for Fox. Douglas Fairbanks saw her, she was very beautiful, and got her to star in her first film. So in 1921, she became quite a star. She was very thin, she was a flapper icon, and to keep up her appearance, she tried every single fad diet that came along. 18-day, millennial diet, whatever, cigarette diet. One of the diets, y'all, that she tried was the sanitized tapeworm diet. So basically, they would put a sanitized, I don't even want to know how they did that, tapeworm inside of a pill, and you swallowed it, and then the tapeworm consumed food instead of your body using the food. Okay, that's probably the grossest thing I'm going to tell you. So she did all of these crazy diets, and by 1925, she was diagnosed with TB, which TB was a lot more prominent back then. But she also had nephritis, so a kidney failure type disease. And she was bedridden. And by December of 1925, she was said to be under 80 pounds. And she died, I'm sorry, it must be December 24. She died in January of 1925, and she was only 29 years old. So let's not die to be thin, right? All of these fad diets and crazy things that people were doing really started the epidemic of eating disorders, which is very sad. I'm a huge Karen Carpenter fan. I have a record player, and anytime I'm at the Goodwill and I see a Carpenter's album, I buy it because I just thought she was amazing, and I was so disappointed that she succumbed to her disease. But the flapper era ended, of course, with the Great Depression, and fashion and dieting really became an afterthought. So in the 1930s, if you were thin, that meant you were poor because of the Great Depression, the lack of food, rationing, all the things. So full and curvy women were popular once again. Should have been born in the 30s. Because of the Depression and the limited fashion and money, women started altering men's suits. I found this fascinating. So that's where we got the silhouette. If y'all were alive in the 80s, of the big poofy shoulder pads. And that created more of an hourglass look. So then I'm going to speed up a little bit, 30s and 40s, diet books started to really increase in popularity, as they did in the 40s and 50s. And then came the 1960s. All right, y'all, I was born in 1961. I remember the icon Twiggy. How many of you remember her? That was the skinny ideal. And I think Twiggy was partially just naturally a slim lady with a very slight build, but it was the ideal that was represented in all the magazines. Even, back in that day, we sewed a lot of our clothes. And I can remember going to the fabric store and looking through the big books of patterns, and all the people were like this big, It was definitely the Twiggy look. And many women did protest this Western ideal because it's not attainable or achievable if you have a different body build. Next, thank you, Jesus, the fat acceptance movement was born. Steve Post was a chubby kid, and he started the fight against unfair body standards. So in 1967 in Central Park, they did a fat sit-in and they burned diet books. Go on with it, Steve. In the late 60s, a gentleman named Lou Lauterbach's wife was really tortured at work because she was not the ideal body. She was overweight. And so he wrote an article called More People Should Be Fat, and started the National Association to Aid Fat Americans, which I know is not PC. I am just reporting history. So many other fads continued because of this very thin ideal. One of the ones was called a Metro-Cal shake. You drank it 4 times a day, and it only had 225 calories, so you were getting about 900 calories a day. And then there was another one, this one really sounds awful, called the Drinking Man's Diet. So we all know alcohol is high in calories. So for men that were developing the middle-age spread, they were to drink 6 glasses of buttermilk a day and consume no food. I hate buttermilk, like to drink, so I can't imagine. I'd probably lose a lot of weight on that one. All of this kind of changed when the Atkins diet. started. So it was invented by a cardiologist in New York City, and he gained weight himself personally when his practice was unsuccessful. So in 1972, he wrote his first book, and it was high fat, high protein, low carb, i.e. keto. You know, we can call it keto, but it's Atkins. It's all pretty much the same. It is the best-selling fat diet book ever written. However, there have been development of heart problems because of the high cholesterol, high fat diet. And it's also very, very hard on your kidneys to consume too much protein. So medically, we know that really isn't the smartest diet. And I'm not criticizing anybody who's on keto. In the 1980s, pardon me, the ideal body changed again. And who brought that change? Y'all say it with me, Jane Fonda. How many of you had a Jane Fonda VCR tape? Or I had the record, you know, like the album. I did a ton of aerobics. But she started modeling in the 50s and then progressed to acting. And in 1978, she fell and broke her ankle. She was 41 years old. She found a class of aerobics that didn't use feet and legs and started building up her stamina as her ankle healed so that she wouldn't gain a lot of weight. She loved it so much. In May 1979, she opened her workout studio and taught classes. She wrote books on fitness and nutrition, which you can still find them at the Goodwill. #1 bestseller in 1982. And if y'all remember, what did she say? Say it with me. Feel the burn. But here's the truth about Jane Fonda that has come out from her in later years. She battled bulimia most of her life. So if you don't know what bulimia is, I think everybody probably does. Anorexia is severely restricting food. Bulimia is eating food and then purging it by making yourself throw up. Since the year 2000, there has been an 84% increase in eating disorders for those over 35. So these aren't children that are making poor dietary choices. These are grown people. I think that's just so sad. And then I think the saddest era of them all was the 1990s. And what was that called? I hope you'll stay tuned to find out. So if you're of the age that you remember, I'll say print ads, fashion ads in the 1990s, it was called heroin chic. And the look was drastically underweight, pale skin, dark eyes, kind of that androgynous, is that a man or is that a woman look. Now, I'm probably going to butcher this name. Gia Karanji was she was a very successful model, but they actually had to airbrush out the needle marks from all the heroin that she was injecting. And her success was quite short-lived because she died from AIDS at only age 26. During that time, cigarettes also came back into vogue, and because of these heroin chic ideals, there was a dramatic increase in anorexia. And I have long been fascinated by that eating disorder. I think started with Karen Carpenter, but I've watched many documentaries, and y'all, it's just such a sad, sad, sad disease. So please don't think about being anorexic or going on the heroin chic diet. Another example, Izzy Harris went on a diet at age 15 because she was in ballet and she was bigger than the other girls. So not everyone has the body type, i.e. me, to be a thin ballerina. She developed anorexia and bulimia. She lost all of her hair and all of her teeth because of the gastric acid literally decaying her teeth. And she is now in recovery and is an advocate. So there are a lot of people who have come through. I mean, we've seen it in the news with famous movie stars as well. But I just really admire people who are willing to share such an intimate part of them. So How is it today? Well, in around 2012, the body positivity movement started. And, there's a lot of reality TV, and there are some larger people who have shared their weight struggles. There's My 600-Pound Life. There's a lot of things like that. But it is a good challenge to unrealistic beauty standards. And y'all, if I could say anything about this history of our strange diet culture, I think our goal is best served to be healthy and at a healthy weight. So instead of a body ideal, a health ideal. So I pulled out, I got wondering because, inquiring minds, I could only find 3 of my Better Homes and Gardens books that were diet themed, right? So I have 68, 70, and 72. So this one is 68. It's Eat and Stay Slim, the system that counts calories for you, how to maintain your ideal weight, tasty recipes and menus to make you trim. So what did this look like? So here is the diet meal plan, and it's based on exchanges. So it's much like a diabetic diet. So you get so many meat exchanges, so many bread exchanges, fruit and veg exchanges, a fat exchange, very, very Weight Watcher-ish, I think. But they have 1,000 calorie a day diet listed here in 1,200. They also have, let me show you this. They have this chart. Don't you love the illustrations? About how you can burn, like if you consume excess calories, how many calories per hour you would burn if you dance the foxtrot, because we all do that on the regular. If you play table tennis or ping pong, if you walk 20 minutes, you can have an extra large apple, etc., etc. But actually, guys, this one's not unsound at all. It's a very well balanced diet. So I think not all the 60s twiggy craze, went throughout all of the diet plans. Now this one is the Calorie Counters Cookbook, slimming recipes, appetizers to desserts, party menus, weight control plan for everyday dieter, and a clip out calorie chart. So I was like, let me look at what this was. So this was only 2 years later, and we're kind of at the same thing. We're at the basic 4 menu guide: milk group, meat group, vegetable group, bread, cereal, and they tell what each serving is. And then their recipes will actually kind of tell you like how many exchange servings you're having. So lots of different recipes in here that really don't look bad, y'all. It's not really weird stuff. Now I will tell you, I have tried some of the dessert recipes, which brings us to our final book. Y'all, it isn't good. It's bland. But this one is the 1972. So the inside of the book is, your calorie chart. So we were still pretty focused on that. But I will share with you, we're still at the basic 4 food groups, and then the detachable calorie chart that you can put in your purse or pocketbook or pocket, whatsoever. But a lot of the things, that doesn't look super appetizing, but a lot of the desserts are like fruit-based and, mostly fruit-based kind of thing, a lot of fresh fruit. Here's a grapefruit sparkle, which is a beverage. So, yeah, a little different. Here's just a sampling. So I've always kind of had to watch my weight since I turned about 50, and I've watched it go up. But again, I just really want to encourage everyone to focus on a well-rounded diet. I do think the basic 4. I like calorie counting because that's the type of dieting that I have done, and it has worked for me when I do it. And guys, there's all kinds of apps that you can use now. Most fitness watches will also track your food if you put the app on your phone. So I hope that is helpful to you as well, but no body shaming here. So I hope you've enjoyed today's story time. It was something a little bit different. My garden is producing like crazy, y'all. And pretty soon I'm gonna have some things that I can eat fresh, which is really good. And it won't be long until we'll be preserving food. Summer seems to fly by. We are going to be 90 degrees here in Ohio by the end of the week, so I'm doing a lot of watering. We're in a dry spell. I hope your gardens are producing well. I love seeing pictures. If you care to email me a picture of your garden, my email is always in the description box below. If you've enjoyed today's video, if you'd do me a big favor, go ahead and smash that like button. If you know someone who likes to hear about history, go ahead and share my video, and there's a little arrow down below where you can share to your social media or by text, etc. I will see you all later this week, but until then, be healthy, be well, be blessed, take care.